All right, Dale, hey, I'm going to cover some of those things that we talked about earlier. Just a few of them and some details that to look for coaching. And then when I get another meat puppet or something, I can show you how to spot that stuff and do some other of them. But first we're going to go with the turtle, and then I'll do some of the other core stuff for now. So they're going to lay flat with their arms out, reaching as far as they can with their hands and their toes. They're going to try to dig their ribs onto the mat and dig their pubis bone into the mat and try to get their stomach crunched so hard that that's what comes off the mat, and their lower back should get higher. So I have a kind of a dip in my lower back, and you should see that go away in 3, 2. It should be really hard work. They shouldn't be able to breathe doing that. You're probably going to have them do 3 seconds, maybe 5, 10 seconds is a real stud, but they really need to be squeezing as tight as they can. And then you notice that the lower back comes up. You should be able to stick your hand right along the mat underneath their belly button and not, well, I guess it depends how fat the kid's stomach is, but you should be able to get your hand underneath there. His ribs will be heavy on the ground. His pubis bone will be digging into the ground, and his hands to feet will shrink a few inches. Reaching out far. And the whole time I was exhaling so I could crunch it really hard. So plank circle. So a typical plank, elbow plank, straight is the lowest I would allow them to be, and I'd want them to be more hollow, like the turtle shape. So their feet might come up a little bit when they do it. So they're going to be on their elbows and their feet squeezing in this way. And then doing circles. This direction, that direction. Something to look for is you'll want them to keep their hips parallel to the ground so they're not teetering and like smearing peanut butter around. You want them to go kind of, smooth around this way, smooth around that way. Turkish get-ups you're familiar with, arching moors you're familiar with, hanging 90s needs a bar, rocking clocks. Okay, so that same hollow position, but this time on the ground, they're gonna rock and kind of guide themselves in a circle, trying to be smooth as they do it. And until they get, as far as you need them to be, and then they can go the other way. So I would probably have them go in a full circle, both directions or several circles, but when they get really good at it, they're gonna be going something like this. Partly because they learn how to cheat, partly because they get better, but the form of teetering and tipping their obliques to get them to turn just right is really where the strength comes. So I would suggest imagine it takes at least 12 rocks to complete a full circle. So each rock should be maximum a 1 hour increment. More is fine. So both directions and both sides. So that was supine, belly up. I'd also have them do it prone, belly down. It looks the same. They might have to watch out for their nuts. So have them go, at least 12 rocks this way to make a full circle, 12 rocks that way to make a full circle. Death rolls, same position, same positions, the hollow shape, the arch shape, but they're gonna tip through their side shape back to the other side, rolling down and rolling back. So it's, imagine like an alligator grabbed onto an animal and it's kind of rip its leg off by spinning. So that's what I tell them to think about. So they're gonna start off like hollow. They're gonna roll to arch, roll to hollow. I'd probably have them go all the way across the floor. They're gonna roll, trying to stay in a straight line so they don't run into their buddies. And in those shapes, I would tell them, like, imagine you're wearing just a belt or a girdle, and the ground is hot metal, and you don't want any of your skin to touch it. You only want the around your waist to be on the ground. So when they're on their back, their hips, tailbone should be up, their shoulders should be up. When they're on their side, their ribs should be up and their thighs should be up. When they're on their belly, their chest should be up and their thighs should be up. And then the other side again. So from the side, it might look like sideways. And the cheaters are gonna be going like this, being lazy turds. They look all dramatic like that. Start them over from the beginning. Straddle V's. Some of your athletes are going to have crunching in their hips when they do this. Changing the width of their legs might help. If it's painful for them or something, you'll have to decide if you're going to let them keep doing it. Okay, but you're going to start off in that position, but now it's a straddle. Reach hands through to the ground this way. Millions and millions of those. Spine stabilizers. So I'm going to do that facing this way. They're going to have hands about shoulder width apart, feet about shoulder width apart, in a typical push-up kind of shape. They're going to pick up one hand and the opposite foot and try to get them out just for 3 to 5 seconds. Put it back down and switch. When they get better at it, you're going to have them put their hand and leg out to the sides as far as they can get without something in the way there. And not twisting their body when they do it. Some of your athletes are going to be awesome at it. Some of them are going to suck. The matter is, they want to keep their body a straight line. If they have like a line on the floor or the mat or their own shadow, they can look at that and try not to let their shadow get off of that besides their arm and their leg. And the farther their arm goes out, the more cross body stability they need, the stronger they're going to have to be. And then they want to get it back. Try to hold that balance for like another second before they come back down and switch. And when they switch, they should try to switch close to right away. Instead of landing, catching their breath, blah, 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 they should go and kind of like switch pretty much right away. So if they don't have their shirts on, you'd see their muscles switch when they put their hand back down the other hand. You'd see like this side flex, and then they switch hands and that side flexes, and it should just go right. It should go right there, so. Trying to balance and stay stable. And I would probably say 3 to 5 second hold is probably like most recommended, but it depends on a lot of factors. So if they fall in the process, I suppose you can count it, maybe don't count it, but holding it too long is not going to be exactly what you want, because they won't be able to try as hard. So you're really going to want to get their arm and their leg out as far as they can to where their body's going to start wanting to tilt that way, but don't let it tilt. Measure with the line in their shadow how it's going to stay organized as straight as you can get them to stay. Star planks. So elbow, feet matched up at the start. Get them to a plank with this space under here. Should be at least straight down to their feet, but arched up a little bit is going to be even better, like that. Arm goes up, leg goes up until they look like a star as best they can. And you don't want them to be like tipped forward. Try to get them to be on the side so that their ribs, their obliques there is what's working. And then both sides on that. So inchworms and caterpillars kind of seem similar, but they're very different. I'll demonstrate each of those so you can tell the difference. So inchworms are going to go stand up, pike down until they can touch their hands and put weight on their hands. Then the motion is going to be both at the same time. I would allow them to go 1 finger length forward. Then their feet come up, 1 finger length. So they look really, really small progress. It'll look like this. So my flexibility barely allows me to touch the ground, but I can't put weight right here, but I need to. So I'm going to lean forward until I can. I'm going to go fingers, feet, fingers, feet. They should always keep their feet together and their legs straight, and they shouldn't be taking big steps with their hands. As small as they can with their hand is better, but enough that they can still get their feet up. So 1 inch is a fair measurement, 1 centimeter is a fair measurement, 1 finger length is all I would allow them to go. If they're taking big steps and getting big jumps up or bending their knees to get their feet up, I would call that 0, go start over. Caterpillars look similar. The same position where you're getting in that piped stance, but now they're going to step 1 thumb over the other. Just thumbs over the other until they're out in a support position, and then their feet are going to ankle stay together and they inch those up. So that looks like this. My flexibility is already better from that first set I just did. And then I'm going to go here, coming out to a hollow, not a sag, but a hollow, and then ankles together. I'm walking my toes up as far as I can, and then go thumbs up again. And then we'll go ankles up again. And I can do that all the way across the floor. That one is not as much abs as inchworms. Inchworms is way more for core than caterpillars. Caterpillars is more of a total body work, and it does abs a little bit. It does hamstrings, it does back, it does shoulders. But as far as if they're good at inchworms, caterpillars won't be hard. But they might have to do a lot of those, if that makes any sense. So 1 inchworm across the floor is probably going to be a lot for a lot of your guys. Caterpillars are at first, but once those guys are good enough to do inchworms across the floor without bitching and crying, falling apart doing it, they'll be able to do lots of caterpillars back and forth. They'll definitely prefer caterpillars because of the easiness. Standing knee to elbow. Standing elbow to knee, I would allow them to interlock their fingers. I wouldn't make them interlock their fingers if they want to put them on top, but as long as they don't take their hands off. And I'd have them put them on top of their head, not the back, not grabbing their ears, but keeping their hands on top of their head. They're going to stand on 1 foot. They're going to tap 1 toe and lift that knee to their elbow. So touch the toe, so not that I'm putting weight onto it, but I'm standing on my 1 leg, touching my knee and elbow together. It's more lifting the knee by crunching the obliques than it is pulling their head down and bending for it. So you're gonna have different anatomy shapes with different athletes. Some of them might be having to crunch more. Some of them might have a spare tire or something that they're trying to lift their knee with. But as best you can, you want them to stay upright on one foot. Just touch that other foot and touch their knee and their elbow together. Just a bunch on this side. You might do like 20 on that side. Then they can switch. And that's when their weight shifts, is when they switch sides. That's the only time their weight should really shift. It should always stay on that one foot as they're bringing it up, bringing their knee up. So they just barely touch the ground and then barely touch their elbow. And the guys that are really ripped and lean and super defined abs, you'll see their obliques just working on that one side. And on that one, I'd probably have them do something like, if they do 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, they'll end up doing about 100 on each side. They'll do 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, blah, blah, blah. It ends up being just under 100 on each one. I would call that one check off. That would get rid of one exorcist. So neck bobs, I'm sure you're familiar with. So the way I like them is not straight up and down, but I like chin from one shoulder, make a rainbow on one side, and then a U on the other side. So if they are, when your athletes are doing neck bobs, I would have them lay prone and move their chin back and forth, and then lay supine and move their chin back and forth. So one direction, their chin will draw a U, and the other direction, their chin will draw a rainbow. So it looks something like this. Over to one shoulder, lift it, so it works the back of their neck, put it to their other shoulder. So their chin comes up, their ear comes down. Their chin comes up, their ear comes down. And I'd probably have them do, I don't know, 100. And then supine, it would look like this. Okay, so their ears down, their chin comes up, their ear comes down. Their chin comes up, their ear comes down. So my chin is like drawing around my chest, kind of. And they should be feeling it in their sternocleidomastoid, their S19 muscle. And a lot of the guys are going to see it. And some of them, like when I was doing it as an athlete, my neck would get pumped. Like it would get thick fast. So that, you'll decide how many they're going to do for that. But 100's probably fine. So switching lunges, I would let them do two different ways. There's one where it's switch, and I would encourage them to jump as high as they possibly can on every single switch, and then a max set would be when they can't even jump anymore. So it would look more like again, not letting their knee slam on the ground, but they should descend and stop themselves from slamming on the ground. And the other one would be, they do the same thing, but they switch back to the same leg. They jump up in a lunge, switch back, and land the same lunge they started with. Then that's going to be a lot harder, and they, in theory, won't be able to do as much, or they'll be a way better athlete for having done it. So that one looks like this. And then a bunch on this leg, a bunch on that leg. And then you're going to want your athletes to spring up as high as they can, do the biggest switches they can, and still save it without slamming their knee. A bunch on this leg, a bunch on that leg. Again, you might do 20, 19, 18, 17, or you might do 20, 18, 16, 14, something like that. But that countdown method, they'll end up doing way more than you can get them to do set to set to set if they just have that countdown method going. And it ends up always being way more than it seemed like. Like you thought you were doing 20 2 or 3 times, you end up doing 100. Elbow crawls. Okay, that's a really good one. There's not a lot of things that work their back in this way, and a lot of times they need the strength of their rear delt to stop them from getting pinned. Like a guy's got them in half and they're doing that to try to stop themselves from getting pinned. So that motion needs to be pretty strong. So one way to do it is on their elbows here. They're going to pick up their butt and drag their feet, drag their heels. So they're kind of scooting like this. And then you'll know they're doing a bad job when they're leaving a sweat streak because they're dragging their back. So you'll want them to pry their butt off the ground as high as they can, so there's a bunch of space there. And they're going to use their elbows to drag their feet. And if they can, feet closer together would require more stability strength than feet farther apart. So when they're not that good, their feet will naturally go far apart to help the stability. And when they get better, they'll be able to keep their legs perfectly together and drag much stronger. Okay, that's going back. And then once they get down to this side, they can hold themselves up and almost like crawl forward. So now they're gonna go like this, pulling with their heels and pushing with their elbows, trying to keep their butt off the ground. So it's almost like a crab. But you don't want them to be in a crab like this if they can help it. Really what they would want is to, if they could just pull with their heel only, like their legs are out straight and they're just pulling like that. But it's going to be hard for a lot of them. Yeah. This is way better for them. So I'm only pulling with my heels as best I can, and I'm still shoving with my elbows as best I can, and I'm really feeling it in my teres major rear delt. You're going to have guys feel it in their back. You're going to have guys feel it in their hamstrings. You might have them feel it in their calf. But that muscle back there, that's what they want to get, is that strong, so that when they're getting pinned, this isn't hard work for them anymore. And those two methods of that, the elbow back crawls, dragging their feet and then scooching with their feet back, that's going to help that a lot. Side crawls, it's basically it's a push-up. They go sideways into a push-up, they come up, sideways into a push-up and come up. So that will look like this. They're gonna go push, up, push, up, push, up. And when they're not good at that, they're gonna end up going in like a curved shape. So if you can get them a line to like follow a line with their hands or with their face or whatever the case is, it'll help them get their awareness of how big of a step to take with their feet compared to how big of a step they're taking with their hands. And once they get a good motion, I mean, they'll crank them out pretty good, and their push-ups will be getting better. Shrimps. So in jiu-jitsu, we shrimp back to our back. That's a big no-no for wrestlers. They need to shrimp and flatten out. So they're going to shrimp, flatten out to their belly, turn to their side and shrimp and flatten back to their belly, turn to their side and shrimp and flatten back to their belly. So it looks something like this. Okay, so instead of starting here, they're going to start here. They're going to like shove off the guy and shrimp to their belly. Come to this side, shove off the guy, and shrimp to their belly. Come up to here, shrimp to the belly, shrimp to the belly. Your guys will figure it out, because wrestlers cannot, it's a sin to be on their back. If they're on their back and they see the lights, it's stressful, it's causing anxiety, they're gonna have nightmares, they don't want that. So don't let them be comfortable on their back. When they're doing crunches and stuff, a lot of the guys are gonna be like blocking the light. They're gonna put their hands up by their eyebrows to block the light, because seeing the lights from your back means you're losing. So don't let them be uncomfortable being on their back like that. Coyote walks, super good one. So feet are about shoulder-ish width apart, doesn't really matter. They're on their hands, kind of like a bear crawl, but legs are straight. One leg comes up straight behind them, all the way around to the side, and they take a step. Other leg comes up, around the side, and they take a step. Straight behind, around to the side. Straight to the behind, around to the side. And then it's like an isolated gluteus maximus flex the whole way the arm is coming up. And then from gluteus maximus it goes gluteus medius, gluteus minimus to the floor. Gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, gluteus minimus to the floor. So they're getting a really good butt workout, hamstring stretch. It's helping with their brain balance coordination of when they fall and putting their hands down. You'll see it when they do that, because they'll take weird imbalanced steps at first, and their brain will eventually get better at it, and then they'll kind of they'll do it like it'll look like a dog's got like tape on his feet and they're moving their legs out funny. It'll look like that when they get good at it. Pencil tucks, pencil jumps. That's going to be hard to show without a partner to cue me, but what I'll do is I'll do it predictably, and it just won't be as good as a reaction. But I'm going to do like several pencils and a random tuck. And the pencil is a big part. If they get good at keeping stiff and rigid and looking very statuesque in the pencil, it's going to help a lot of their stability, a lot of their shoulder issues, a lot of their lower back issues, a lot of their injury prevention, it's a lot of calories out to do it, but their body is going to be more robust for taking impact if they can keep it so stiff that it doesn't flop at all when they're doing pencils. Let's see if I can show you. So one thing to think about when they're doing those is typically whatever they're lazy with is going to flop. Their hands will be flopping, their shoulders will be flopping, their back will be going, their knees will be bending a lot. The point is, they're not trying to jump, they're trying to vibrate, and they're trying not to let anything vibrate. So their calves are just springing off the ground, really small and super fast, and their whole body is locking out, trying to let like only their ankle spring do any of the work. So everything else is super stiff, so it doesn't do anything. And then when they tuck, they gotta react super fast, and they gotta try to get their knees to slam themselves in the chest, not in the teeth, but in the chest. They should hit their chest and make a noise with their knee, and they should land and get right back to stiff, super fast. And that's gonna, like I said, prevent a lot of injuries. It's gonna make them really robust for taking impacts. Like when they both shoot a double leg at the same time and they smack heads, the kid with a stiffer, stronger body is gonna have less of a problem. So you're gonna want them to not be floppy at all doing that. The first thing you'll see is probably their fingers and their shoulders, but you'll see it like in their neck, you'll see it in their back, and you'll see it in their knees. Whatever they're lazy at, what I would do is go with a stiff finger and poke their shoulder or poke their stomach or poke their butt hard enough that they want to squeeze it to stop the poke from hurting. And then, yes, that's how stiff you should have it. It's just super rigid. With handstand walks, I would prefer their belly towards the wall and they go sideways down. I would have them go until they collapse, but you might have a certain distance that you're allowed. And then they need to come back the other direction too. So if one guy goes down and back, that takes a lot of time for the other guys. So if they go down and come off, more guys can go down, then they can recycle the line and go the other way, or you can have another wall for it. Like if you have a corner with both walls free, you might have, you know, left to right on this wall and right to left on that wall. When you get to the corner, you come back to your wall or the opposite wall. And that way they aren't waiting, each kid isn't waiting for one kid to go down and back before the other kid can go, and they're all waiting. So that's a way to beat that. Yeah, I think that's all I can show you for now, and then when I get Meat Puppet, I'll have them demonstrate and I'll do the hands-on part so you can see those things. I'll get with you later when I get a Meat Puppet to demonstrate it. And like I said, the exorcists, they're gonna have whatever, 18 exorcists after conditioning. Unless they get those things checked off, it removes one of the exorcists. So every time they complete one of the assignment points, they have one less exorcist. And at first you're gonna have to allot them a lot of time to do the exorcist because they're gonna have so many and it's gonna be so hard for them. They're not gonna be able to finish it. Like your one kid who's a gymnast, he might be able to finish it. And probably your next hardest worker, and then probably none of the others. If they all have, like, let's say if they all end up with like 10 exorcists left, it's gonna be super hard for those guys. Okay, so to get into the exorcist, I would have you practice with Dale, and I'll demonstrate how to get up to it and give the cues that you should give to him. And then I'll come back down and I'll narrate how to get going. And then I'll come back up and show you how to get going, okay? So they're gonna start off on their back. All right, start off on your back. The first thing is to get their feet as close to their hip pockets as possible. Even if they're unflexible and they have to grab and put them up there, the farther they can get up here, the easier. If they scoot back out like this, it ruins it. It's gonna be harder to get back up. So they wanna get their feet up close to their butt or close to their pockets, then get their fingers behind their shoulders as best they can, and maybe a little bit wider, and then they're gonna push up on their hands, but by pushing behind them on their hands. At the same time, they're gonna be extending their legs, and it's gonna stretch their back and their stomach, and it's gonna be really hard. Most of your athletes are probably not gonna get their heads off the ground first try, but they're gonna go fingers underneath their shoulders, and then push up. And once they get there, they're gonna wanna push on their legs to make themselves feel heavier on their hands, and they're gonna keep pushing, even if they have to like scoot their legs and walk, until they feel like they can't take it on their hands anymore, and they just pick up one hand and put it back down. When they pick it up, it's gonna automatically move to a more comfortable spot, and when they put it down to save themselves, the next hand is gonna be uncomfortable. They keep pushing, they pick it up, and they're gonna slowly start crawling. And just have them go as far as they can. They come back down, they roll their wrists out, they rock their back, whatever they're gonna do. They gotta get back up and finish it. From one side to the next side is one exorcist. So it's gonna go like this. Until they get all the way across the floor. The more flexible their shoulders are, the more flexible their splits are, like their side splits, front, like left leg and right leg split, the easier this will be. It's not necessarily the flexibility of their back. The back will help, but the kids who have a very flexible back, they're gonna get fatigued in their shoulders, and they're gonna fall because their shoulders get so tired. The kids who are more flexible in their shoulders will be able to get their shoulders back farther and aligned better, and it's kind of like standing on straight legs. They won't be as fatigued. And those are probably going to be your lighter kids. This will help with all of their shoulder flexibility, all of their back flexibility, with their upside down orientation. It really, really sucks. Really good for their balance. It's awesome for them. And I would expect that every time they have to do some of them, they get a little bit better. First at figuring out how to do it, then at being able to go farther, then at completing the assignment, then at not having to do them anymore, because it's going to suck so bad they way rather finish their assignments. All right, so I hope all that helps. I'll send you this video here in a little bit. And then, I don't know, call me and let me know how things go for you. Rock on, man.